We always get such a flood of people right at the top of the hour. People are in back-to-back meetings. Any international guests with us? We have Alberta represented. We have Ontario represented. Let us know where you're coming in from. If you're new to these skill booster sessions, these are going to be interactive. There's going to be a lot of action in the chat going on today. So we're just warming you up. From Turkey, brilliant. Thank you so much for being here. May I ask a follow-up question? What time is it in Turkey? I'm so bad with international time zones. Wow. Well, good evening. Thank you for being here with us. That's tremendous. I always wonder how we reach such a global audience. It's incredible. I'm going to be very generous and give it another 60 seconds for people to get connected, and then we're going to dive in because this is a great one. I'm very pumped for today. Awesome. Some more folks are here. Hello. Thank you for being here. We're giving it 60 seconds for people to join. If you've just got connected, let us know where you're joining from into the chat. We have a global reach. We have Alberta, Ontario, Turkey already accounted for. Minnesota. Hi, Sherry. Been to Minnesota just recently last year. My first time there. I enjoyed it very much. All right, team. We are going to get rolling today. Lots packed into a very short amount of time. Our half hour here together, all about procrastination. Think dust and eat frogs. Weird title. I promise you it will make sense by the end of it today. Let's get rolling. Let's get right into it. Some of you know me. Hi, my name is Nick. I work for Think Productive. I'm a productivity ninja. That's what it actually says on my business cards. And it's amazing. It's tremendous. I'd love to be friends. Reach out. I'm an easy find on LinkedIn. My email address is also my handle on my screen today. But let's keep in touch. Uh, Here's why you're here, right? Think Productive, global training company. All of our programs based on the best-selling book, How to Be a Productivity Ninja by our founder, Graham Alcott. We have, chapters here in Canada, in the US, in the UK, Australia, around the world. A work revolution where everyone loves Mondays. We believe that's possible. So here's what we're trying to get to today. Oh, the P word, right? Procrastination. It's a swear word to many of us. We're going to be looking at what is it, why we do it, and how to fight it like a ninja today. Does anyone want to self-identify, in the chat? Anyone gonna admit to it that you're a procrastinator? I am. Yeah. Okay. Guilty. Yeah. Malin, thank you so much. Right. Uh, of course I am. I don't believe that there's enough time to get everything done. I do believe there's enough time to get the most important things done. And I actually think that procrastination is a good thing, especially when we're using it selectively. When we practice selective procrastination, there's not enough time to get everything done. So that means if I'm procrastinating on low value tasks, that means I'm actually prioritizing high value tasks. So I want to always practice selective procrastination. And for me, it always comes back to impact. What are the things that I can do that are going to create the most impact or add the most value? Those are the things I should do first, and I should procrastinate on the rest of it. So what is it? We know it, we've done it, we've seen it. There's some great definitions around procrastination. I'll put them up on the screen now. The delay in conjunction with subjective discomfort, okay? the illogical delay of behavior. That makes sense. Procrastination is the action of unnecessarily and voluntarily delaying or postponing something despite knowing there will be negative consequences for doing so. Put an A, B, or C in the chat of what one is your favorite. My favorite actually isn't on the screen, but as someone described it to me before as procrastination is the gap between intention and action. I like that, right? We know what to do. We know what we should be doing. We just can't get ourselves there. We can't force ourselves to do it. So it's the gap between intention and action. What I've learned recently is there's different kinds of procrastination as well. I'm going to put this into the chat. There's the APA around procrastination. And the first one is the most common, what we see all the time, avoidance procrastination. And this is typically when we're putting things off that we know are going to be observed, judged, criticized by other people. We're submitting a proposal, we're submitting our work to others for consideration, and other people are going to have eyes on that. So we put it off because of that judgment. We put it off because of that evaluation, of that critique. This is the fear of failure. This is the fear of success in many cases as well. And this is one of the most common ones we see is avoidance procrastination. The second one, excuse me, many ways to spell that, making sure it's the correct one. Perfectionist procrastination. And this tends to make sense for many of you too, right? Quick test. There's probably some perfectionists on the call. I don't even need to see you, but we can do the test. Just fill in my sentence, finish my sentence for me. If I want something done right, I need to, right. If you're thinking it, if you answered do it myself, you might be a perfectionist, and that's okay. Perfectionist procrastination is I can see the whole picture. I can see the completed task, and I can see it in my mind done so well and so up to my standards. I have that big picture image, but I don't know where to start. I can see it done so well and completed up to my standards, but I don't know how to begin. Right? I have an epic novel in me. I know it. Chapter one. Right? This is the source of all writer's block as well, right? So this idea of wanting to do it so well, so up to your standards, and seeing the entirety of it done, and not being able to force yourself to get started. This is perfectionist procrastination. The third and final one, ooh la la, arousal procrastination. No, not like that. Arousal procrastination is when we need some other external stimulant to motivate us. The most common one we see is a deadline. So again, let me know in the chat. Is that you? Do you feel, that motivation when there's a deadline? Do you feel okay? I can actually get down to business when there's that lingering deadline. Yeah, nice. Uh, that arousal deadline, arousal procrastination. The deadline, what it does is it forces us to choose. Right? It eliminates options. Well, I can't do this and this. I don't have enough time. I have to do this. So there is something to, that working under a deadline. Just be aware of if you're using it too much because there are physiological, psychological effects like stress and burnout if you're using that deadline motivator too much. Let me know in the chat which one you think, best guess, describes the procrastination you most commonly deal with. Avoidance, perfectionist, or arousal procrastination. Nice. Working under pressure super motivates you. Wow. All three, right? Guilty. Oh, hands up. Nice. Avoidance procrastination. Cool. We're going to get a little personal if you're comfortable in the chat. What's something you're procrastinating on right now? As much as you're comfortable sharing in the group, what's something you're procrastinating on right now? Is it personal? Is it professional? Is it housework? Multiple income streams. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Housework. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why we do it in just a second. Writing your thesis. Yeah. Because sometimes it's so massive, right? It's so encompassing. Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing. Let's get into it. Why do we do it? We know it, right? It's the gap between intention and action. We know what we should or ought to be doing, but there's some science behind it. I'm a bit of a brain nerd. I think some of you know this about me. The hind part of our brain, it's called the amygdala. It's in charge of all our fight, flight, or freeze responses. And it's the emotional part of our brain, and it's kept us alive for thousands of years, right? Our caveman brain, our lizard brain, and it views all change as a threat. And logically, when we're thinking with our prefrontal cortex, the logical part of our brain, we know not all change is a threat. Some change is opportunity, some change is advancement. But sometimes when we have that delay in getting started, it's our lizard brain, it's our amygdala really speaking to us and trying to take over because it's saying, oh, don't try something new. It's a threat, it's dangerous. And we know logically that that's not always true, but it's played such a role for thousands of years of keeping us alive that sometimes it likes to chatter. Sometimes that hind part of our brain is very active. So when we're being overwhelmed and we're stuck, there's this idea of resistance, and sometimes it's our lizard brain playing tricks on us. When we are being mindful, though, however, when we're practicing mindfulness, we can be more aware of what we're falling into. If we can, again, if we can name it, we can tame it. If you can say, oh, this is just my perfectionist procrastination kicking in. I want to do the whole thing so well. Oh, I'm just avoiding this because I know other people are going to have comments about it. If we're starting to pick apart how and why we're procrastinating, we're going to be able to overcome it a little bit. And I have my favorite acronym in the world for you here. This is why we procrastinate. When things are dusty, we tend to put off things that are difficult, things that are undefined, things that are scary, and things that are tedious. So let's break them down. Difficult. We don't want to do things that are hard. If it's challenging, if it's outside of our comfort zone, we tend to put them off. There is resistance there. Uh, Clarity is a big one. When things are undefined, when they're fuzzy, when they're vague, then we are really like, I don't even know how to get started. Am I describing anything that you're familiar with undefined? Has anyone had a project or an assignment or a task that's been given to you? You're like, I don't even know what this is. I don't know how to start it. There's just a lack of clarity involved. Let me know in the chat. Scary. What I mean by scary, consequences, right? Your butt's on the line. Other people are affected. Uh, so I'm hearing, right, the thesis. It's difficult. It's probably a little bit scary. Tedious. It's boring. It's not super fun. Housework, Kristen, am I right? Undefined is also scary. Yeah. So if it's not fun for us, we tend to put it off. Here's the great thing. Dust is one of those very cool words, in my opinion, that is both a noun and a verb. How do you get rid of dust? You dust. So if something is, you're putting it off, now we're aware of it. How do we get rid of it? How do we start that momentum? If something is difficult, how do we make it easier? Could we break it down into bite-sized pieces? Right? What's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So can we break it down into manageable pieces, manageable components? How do we make this easier? Undefined. How do you seek clarity? Is there an example that you can see? Is there someone who did this project last year that could show you a template or a guide? Or how do you gain clarity? What are the expectations around that? Is that a conversation you need to have? If something is scary, how do we make it unscary? Kind of just have to face our fear. We have to have that, moment of truth with ourselves where we're saying, yeah, I'm putting this off because there's consequences. I'm putting this off because this is important. And then we can kind of overcome it a little bit. And tedious. How do we make it more fun? How do we Gamify it. For me, it's always goals and games. Can I add an element of competition? I'm going to take 10 minutes to do as many payroll forms as I can, and then I'm going to try to break my own record. Is there a housework game, Kristen, you can make more fun? How do I challenge myself? Do I put on some tunes to do some of the housework? So how do you dust? How do you get rid of dust? You dust. When things are difficult, how do you make them more easy? When things are undefined, how do you add clarity? When things are scary, how do we make it more approachable? When things are tedious, how do we make it more fun? Moment for reflection. I'll give you 2 minutes live real time. Think of the things you're resisting. Think of the things you've been putting off. Has something been on your to-do list, week after week? Which one is it? Is it because it's difficult, undefined, scary, tedious, or dusty? We've added the Y, not due yet. I'm putting it off because I have time at stake. It's not due yet. It's not that lingering deadline. Take a moment. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts in the chat. Dance through the cleaning. I love it. Nice. Go through your to-do list. What have you been putting off and you know it? Give everyone a minute to take some notes here. Too big. Yeah, it's massive. It's difficult. A little bit scary. Writing a greeting card. Yeah, nice. How do you break it down? How do you make that 5 years of data manageable? Can you go, first year, 2021 a year of data? Having breakfast. I procrastinate on having breakfast. I don't have that problem. I eat breakfast a lot. Nice. Cool. Thank you for the involvement in the chat, team. So we're halfway through. We know what is. We know why it exists. We know how it shows up for us, how to fight it like a ninja. Oh, nice, Carlene. If the project or item is too big, it's overwhelming. Instead of starting in many pieces, I avoid. That's procrastination. Nope. I'm not going to do a little bit. I'm just going to put it off. That's the definition of procrastination. So some strategies. What we always preach is that a ninja needs a second brain. Our brains are great, but they're sometimes lazy. Our brains are for having ideas, not for holding ideas. And this is often what we go through in our master class, our 6 weeks to ninja, or our the way of the productivity ninja class, is getting things out of our brain and onto pen and paper, into an app, getting things out so they're not falling through the cracks. It helps us beat procrastination. Also, you know, it's a matter of motivation, intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is how can I get from stressed and stuck to playful, productive momentum? And this is often just about starting, right, and changing the narrative. And extrinsic motivation help others, people, to force it out of you. The best way I do this is I put a deadline in someone else's world, meaning, hey, can we book a meeting to discuss chapter 1 of my book? If that meeting's 2 weeks out, I've now got a deadline in someone else's world that I'm now accountable, and I owe it to them to show up. Can you start putting deadlines in other people's worlds? Who can help you be accountable? Making public commitments will really force you to start, at least get started on it, because that builds momentum. So here's where we get into the playfulness around think dust and eat frogs. Anyone know the analogy I'm going for here? Eat that frog. This was, I believe, a Brian Tracy. I think it was a Mark Twain quote, but it was adopted for productivity by Brian Tracy. And it said, if for whatever reason, you needed to eat a live frog as part of your day, you should probably do it first thing in the morning. That way, nothing else you do all day is going to be that bad. Everything else is going to taste sweet. And if you have to eat 2 live frogs in a day, you should probably eat the biggest one first. Right? That way it's not looking at you all day. It's a weird analogy, but I really like it. And what it means is whatever that most difficult, that most challenging, that thing you've been resisting, whatever that task is, do it. Do it first. Monotask it. Do it to a natural break or completion point. And that way, nothing else you do in that day is going to be as scary, as tedious, as challenging, as difficult. The rest of your day is smooth sailing. This really started to see a comeback, this phrase during pandemic. We would have teams have a morning huddle, and then they would become frog hunters. They would say, "What are your frogs for the day? What are you working on?" And then they would have maybe an afternoon check-in. Are you still working on big frogs, or are you onto tadpoles? So it became kind of common language, part of the vernacular during the pandemic for what teams were working on. And I really think that's a great way to overcome it as well. The Pomodoro technique. Many of you are familiar with this. This is essentially time blocking, and what it is I'm going to work for 20 minutes, just 20 minutes. That's it. And then I'm going to have a 5 minute break. And then I'm going to do another block, 20 minutes. And force myself. I can do anything for 20 minutes. And then I have a 5 minute break. Uh, you do 4 of those cycles before you have a longer break, about a 15-minute break. But it's just that momentum. Once you want to do one um, block, if you want to do another, it just gets you going. I'll put this into the chat. I believe this is still a site. Tomato. It's just a little desktop tool for you to have these little, gives you that little chime when your 20-minute cycle is done. But the important part is actually taking the break in there. It sounds counterproductive. After 20 minutes, you take a break. It builds in that, okay, I can do 20 minutes, then I'll have, a rest. It's really important to add that break in for momentum. So that's a great one. I love doing that. Those sprints, if anyone's familiar with lean or agile practices, call them sprints. These time block cycles are a great way to just get started and overcome procrastination. Also, what are those distractions? Is it, being online? Is it doom scrolling? Is it social media? Is it other people? It's okay to go dark, at least for the time being, right? Sometimes we can be our own worst influence, our own worst distraction. So there's you know, a lot of ways to go dark. The working offline mode in Outlook is great. There's a lot of dumb phone apps or do not disturbs or airplane modes that we can do to protect what we call our most valuable resource, and that's our attention. And here's probably the biggest one. Um, what we call our daily checklist. And we start our day at Think Productive every day before we open our inbox, before we start working on anything, on a sticky note, post a note, because it's small. What are the 5 things? If I were to only do 5 things today, what 5 things would have the most impact? What 5 things would create the most value? So when you can start your day with 5 things on a post-it note, you have outlined what your priorities are for the day. We talked about selective procrastination. If we're working on our highest value tasks, then we're procrastinating on low value tasks. What typically we see people start their day in their inbox. They open their email first thing in the morning. And what tends to happen is when you do that, you are responding to other people's priorities. So starting your day with 5 things on a post-it note starts your day with your priorities. Nice. A minute for reflection. What will you do now based on what we've talked about today? And then we'll hear some of your reactions and responses into the chat. Please take 1 minute. Go for it. And we're looking for actions here. And actions are verb words. There are things that you will do based on what we've talked about today. Make some notes for yourself. if you've made some notes for yourself, please start popping them into chat. What are things you're going to do? How are you going to overcome your resistance? How are you going to beat your procrastination? As you're talking, folks, as you're starting to populate the chat, I'll give you a couple more that just work for me. A couple quick hitter ones. And again, I love food, so they're food analogies. The one is called the salami slice method. And it's interesting because if I were to task you to eat an entire salami, that would be challenging. That would be daunting. That might even be gross for some of you. But if I were to slice the salami, say, could you just eat this piece? Well, many of you probably could. Many of you would say yes. So the salami slice method is, we know your project's big. We know there's many components. Can you just do one piece? Can you just slice one piece off and do that piece? And then what always tends to happen is forward momentum. By doing one piece, you might want to do just one more piece and keep going. And the other one food analogy I have is the Swiss cheese method, and that is just punching a hole into your task. And that could be a time component. That could be, a certain um, losing my words, a time component or a certain level of completion. People have transformed their bodies by working it for just 15 minutes a day, right? If you are a writer and I tasked you to just write one page a day, at the end of the year, you have a 365-page book. So the Swiss cheese method is punching a hole into your task or into your project, either for a time completion or a set, designated completion amount as well. What were the 5 things to do each day? The 5 things to do each day is from your to-do list. What if I could only do 5 of them would add the most impact? What would be the most valuable thing? So this is a personal thing. It's a way to prioritize. You write them down on a post-it note before you do anything else. If I could only do 5 things today, what 5 would be the most impactful? What 5 would be add the most value, and get started onto that one. Rearrange your schedule. Love it. Break big things into smaller ones. Tremendous. Focus on a big win or a few smaller ones. Yeah, Carlene, amazing, right? Love it. Incredible. Team, we're coming to the end of it. If you found value here, let us know. There's a QR code if you want to be in the loop about all our monthly skill boosters. And again, I absolutely view feedback as a gift. So there's a website there, there's a QR code there. Let us know how we did today. If you can't tell, I love what I do. Productive NA. So I want to hear about it. If I could be doing it better, that is an actual gift to me. I'll put this into the chat as well, just so it's easy for people. NSB evaluation. Tremendous. And also, again, stay in touch. You can find me easily on LinkedIn and socials. I'm more concerned about, you getting some value out of it. But thank you so much for playing along today. Quick, straight to the point. Hope you're overcoming your procrastination. All the best to you folks. Take care. Cheers. Yeah, you're welcome. Cheers. Yeah, you're welcome. Stick around if anyone has questions. Yeah, thank you.